All right. There we go. There we go. And with that, we are live yet again. I can't believe how time flies. It's another exciting Light 'em Up week. It's another Wednesday evening or Wednesday afternoon where you are, or late night for some of the people joining us from Asia. I'm beyond excited to have Carson Serino with us tonight from Serino Cigar Company. And I'm actually on location again because I have to travel quite a fair bit for work these days. I'm in the most western part of Austria, high up in the Alps. So hopefully the internet connection is all stable. But as always,
that's terrible.
it certainly is. I would show you the outside there. It's just gorgeous. I mean, the mountainous landscape, it's epic. But I'm glad to see so many familiar faces, quite a few new faces. For all of you guys here at the lounge, I mean, you know the spiel. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat box, raise your hand, speak up. I'm delighted to have you all. And for all of you watching us through the Facebook live stream, I'm glad that you're tuning in. If you have any comments, any thoughts, questions, please put them underneath the live video. And I'm always checking the streams, and I'll make sure to forward all your questions to Carson Serino. Carson, thank you so much for taking the time, and thanks for being on the Light 'em Up show. How have you been?
I've been great. No problem. It's something I've been looking forward to. I see on social media a lot, all the guests you're bringing on, and you got a lot to live up with all the good manufacturers you've been bringing on recently.
Well, thank you so much. You know, we're doing this for the entire cigar family, and it means so much to me and to all the people that support us and are part of the show, that we get this opportunity to actually share some precious moments, some precious cigars, and all the wonderful stories of our guests with our global audience and with apasionados from all around the world. And I'm excited, Carson, that you're tuning in today and that you're gonna introduce us to your family history, the whole story and exciting background of Serino Cigar Company, because to me you're one of these stellar families where you actually work alongside your father. Your brother is in the business. I mean, your father had a lengthy track record of over 20 years in the industry, and you are, like myself, one of the young and super passionate up and coming generation in the cigar industry, and we actually have quite a few of those here at the Light 'em Up Lounge. So tell us a little bit of how you actually got into the cigar industry, because I know at the beginning you probably weren't as fond of the idea of joining the family business, but how did that come about?
So it was, we got to rewind. I'm only 30. We got to rewind about 27 years. When I was 3 years old, my father got out of his previous business. He sold it. He was in South Florida. Mm-hmm. And, he started like a lot of different people. He was mainly just an enthusiast, and really fell in love with cigars, really fell in love with, the community around it. And he opened up a small little retail store called My Cigar Club right off Powerline Road, which is no longer there because, we've grown since then. But started off as a retailer and mainly just selling other people's brands, the General Alphases of the world. Went down to Little Havana, started meeting different people in the Miami area, and started all off as just wanting to create his own little brand as a private label for the shop, which was called Nino Vasquez, which is the first brand he ever made. And started developing that with, I believe it was R.B. Sosa at the time and George Rico, two different lines from Grand Habano and Sosa Cigars, who was experiencing quite a boom back in the early 90s. And that turned into, just from being a retailer to supplying our own retail store, and then had about 10 to 15 accounts in the South Florida area carrying it. And APS Distributors was then formed around like 2006, 2007. And that was, let's build out all of our own brands and start distributing them, as well as helping other people who were in our previous position to start distribution, and kind of built like an alliance of 3 or 4 different brands, and started distribution there. I was running the retail shop in high school after school. I kind of that was my post-school job, and I really fell in love with cigar industry then, more so just hanging out, good people all the time, getting to sample all these different cigars, and then also work on some of our own stuff. And went to school. I did marketing and entrepreneurship, and I minored in studio art because I really like the branding and the concepts, the design work of building out brands. I got out of school in 2013, and we were always supplying good cigars, but I wanted to be able to create that, I could put up against the Padrones of the world, or of the other high quality brands that were out there. And I knew we had the resources to do that. It just, we weren't doing it at the time. So Serino Cigar Company was developed separate from APS as like our elite, our high end items. And ever since then, that's really what I've been working hard at, is to develop out our distribution, our branding, our following. And so far, so well. As every new business, there's bumps in the road and obstacles, but I'm pretty happy with where we're at and what we're bringing to the end consumer right now.
Carson, what was so appealing to you in the first place to the world of cigars? Was it because it was that family thing and your family has always been involved with, or did you sort of find your very own take on it and your very own entry path into that ecosystem?
Both. I love the community behind it, and I remember being younger and just like looking at all these like really beautiful ornate bands and all the packaging, and it's got some romanticism to it that I really fell in love with. But then getting out of it, it was just like a new task, something I knew I could be good at, and to bring to market something that I believed we weren't, offering at the time. So, some of it was ambition, and some of it was just love of, growing up around it.
How did you start to sort of create your own sensory database and your own palette for the cigars? Was it together with your dad, or what inspired you to sort of develop that palette?
Yeah, my dad played a good role in that. But I would more so say going down to La Corona the first time and just seeing the time and detail and attention they put into their cigars, and meeting Omar, and his passion is pretty contagious. And after that, really working on, what you look for in a cigar, building to its strengths, and developing your own taste of cigars. Like I'm a person who really likes that classic vintage, very medium bodied taste. But I know that not everybody loves that. In the American market, I feel like that's kind of a niche market in the American market. It's people either want really dainty and delicate Connecticut's, or they want really full flavored, hit you in the mouth Maduros and stronger blended cigars. But where I fall, I really like to search for flavors in a cigar and have one that you could smoke right after another, but still it be incredibly satisfying. I think that's what I do well when we're picking out blends or working on blends. And I kind of defer to like my dad and other people when they want to do something a little bit different, because that's not really my arena. I think, you find your palate and your taste for things, and then you should just be good at them. Like, and that's what you can offer to your customer, because there's so many good cigars. Like it's not like the early 90s where like there was such a cigar demand that 30% was quality and the other 70% was just demand driven, and that other 70% wasn't that great. I think that right now is the best time to be a cigar enthusiast. Hey guys. Yeah, I would say developing the palate though is definitely, it's important, and people should smoke as much as possible when they're first starting off and take notes, find what you like, and then just build on it from there. I really believe that every cigar has something to offer, and somebody shouldn't tell you that, hey, this one's bad or this one's good. It just might be something that you really love. You really like have a sweet tooth to you, so you really want like some rich, like jalapa driven Nicaraguan tobacco, or you want that really classic vintage Cuban type blend. So it's always an ongoing journey with cigars.
I think it's very interesting for such a family consortium to sort of work alongside each other. Did you ever feel like that is a bit of a burden, or is it more of a blessing to have the opportunity working with your dad, your brother? How's that creative tension between you guys?
80% a burden. No, I'm kidding. My dad's great to work with. But I'm definitely, when we were first starting off, I was definitely under the microscope a lot with him, especially because he had a lot more experience than I did. But it's a blessing, like to be able to have, somebody on your side most of the time, and to really push you to go after what you want to do or the cigars you want to produce. That's definitely a blessing. A burden is like, there's no pullback when things go wrong. So, we have that very honest discourse whenever, problems arise, but that's not really a burden either. That's kind of a blessing, being able to talk to somebody without, like I said, any kind of filter, I guess. But yeah, it's exciting. I most of the time, me and my dad, we see things, exactly the same way. And I think when we disagree, both of our viewpoints are better for each other. So I don't know if that was a good answer for that, but yeah. So I would say overall a blessing.
It certainly does, and I guess it's the very same experience for quite a few families who work alongside each other. You have some of that constant haggling, and you gotta somehow make it work alongside each other. But I think there's many great examples in the premium cigar industry where you have father and son, or father and his sons working alongside each other. And for me, I think the important aspect is always that everybody brings a specific talent or a specific view on the industry to the table, so that you can definitely look at the entire operation and the business from different angles and just share your individual takes on things.
Yeah, absolutely. Like branding wise, my dad looks at things differently than I do. Like Wayfarer and Taino, they look a little bit different than our Serino Royale line. And that was kind of his brainchild, and we let him do it his way there, and there's been success to that. And then there's also been a lot of success to the way I like design and brand and develop our products. So, we have two forces that are on different different sides of the spectrum that I think work pretty synergistically together. So,
Carson, what's also fascinating to me is you mentioned My Cigar Club, and you were actually working there for quite a bit. Would you say that that particular experience and getting to meet other cigar apasionados in that very specific club or sort of lounge atmosphere, did that change your perspective on the industry and the way certain cigars are received by the smokers?
Yeah, it was pretty cool. That was like during the times when Rocky was still hitting the road, and like Rocky Patel would come into your lounge to sell you his own cigars. So I definitely, I got to meet a lot of people now that are in the industry. Like Eric Espinoza was coming to our lounge to sell cigars, and now they're very well established brands in the States. So it was definitely cool, and I learned a lot through those people who necessarily they're not always on the road now, but they would come right from the factory and then come visit our shop, and you'd really get to get more of a lesson or information from them than just like your standard sales rep today. So I learned a lot about cigars there, mainly the selling and the marketing side of it, but also like what was going on at factories and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that the hospitality industry and the cigar industry have a lot in common, or could you take some of those learnings, sort of working in hospitality, into the cigar business?
Yeah, they work hand in hand, especially like when you're a sales rep, you want to when you're selling your own brand, you want to make sure you have great customer service, and you want to build a community around your brand, which the hospitality industry does well. They implement all it is community and customer service, and I think being able to bring that when you're bringing out your own brand, I believe is very beneficial. So,
speaking of that evolution, you with Serino Cigar Company obviously started with working together with Omar, right? How would you say that you actually found Omar, or did Omar find you? How was that connection coming together?
All right, so Omar's in Nicaragua now. So Omar's got a lot of pedigree behind him, and he's like a lot of the people in the back end of the cigar industry that you don't understand, like who these people are as the average consumer. But we met Omar a long time ago in Costa Rica. My dad did. I didn't meet him until the back end of his Costa Rica days, and then when he went to Nicaragua. But so Omar in Cuba, he started off at a young age, pretty much working as a tobacco farmer. And then he did an apprenticeship under Alejandro Rabana of the Rabana farms, which Alejandro Rabana is, considered kind of the godfather of tobacco in Cuba. He's one of the only ones that have his own farm that's not state owned. And Omar worked there, learned all the farming there, then went to Partagas factory as a roller, and then ended up running the La Corona factory, where he took his name from in Nicaragua. But La Corona is the largest factory in Cuba, which make Monte Cristo. A lot of brands make Monte Cristos, but they make Romeo and Julieta, Pollo de Monterrey. There's just so many different heralded brands that people have no idea came from this man. And then, he had the dream of wanting to own his own factory. So he migrated to Costa Rica, which is a pretty common practice to go to Costa Rica to Nicaragua. It's a jump off point. Then went to Nicaragua, set up shop, his own farms. At that time, him and my father, they were already talking about the factory and producing cigars out of there. And that's kind of how it all came about. It was really like serendipitous. I was coming out of school, we were backtracking this project for a couple of years, and everything really worked out for us, because we knew a lot of people, and we have a stake of ownership in a factory in Dominican, but we wanted to produce Nicaraguan cigars. So we had to kind of go through the old Rolodex of who we knew to produce these, and toured a lot of factories, but there's just things differently that we really appreciated that Omar did, which is why we make our Serino cigars with him. You know, he doesn't use a Lieberman machine, which a Lieberman machine is when you take the bunch, you just bunch it by hand, put it on there, and then you roll it back. You know, there's not one Lieberman machine in all of La Corona. Everything is done on feel and hand rolling. So there were little things like that when we were talking about it, like, this is what we want this brand to be. Like, we have all of our other bases covered. We want a true artisan brand. So why are we go with anyone different that brings an artisan touch to the way they produce cigars? But yeah, to answer your initial question, Omar, we probably met him in the early 2000s.
Actually, Andy sort of asked a similar question. Andy, thanks for being on the show again. It's great to see you. Would you like to add anything to that, or any particular aspects that you still wanted to ask Carson here? You're all good? Question answered? Perfect. Great. Well, thank you for that. Well, Carson, yeah, it's a great point that you mentioned there, and it's that these particular these subtle little things, and it's little details that really make you click, I guess, with a particular factory or with the owner of the factory. How would you sort of describe, apart from some of the technical aspects you mentioned, how would you describe the handwriting and the signature of La Corona that you finally, when you realized this is exactly who and where we want to work at?
Tradition is kind of king with him. He's a purist. Like, Omar won't ever make a mixed fill cigar out of that factory. No mixed filler, no short filler. Everything's long fill. Still wood molds. You know, a lot of people talk about like tradition and wanting, but they use plastic molds. He used wood molds. It adds a little bit more bumpiness, but that's like what true Cuban tradition is, that there should be character to the roll. The no Lieberman machines, the way he ferments his tobacco, nothing ever gets over a certain temperature. Slow and steady fermentation progress instead of overheating to get to, you know, the destination of where you want that tobacco to be in a faster amount of time. It might take longer, but I just think the way he does it is a little bit better. And he always just preaches like tobacco with character. It's always got like, every tobacco has something unique to it. It might not work in one blend, but just the way you looked at tobacco, you're trying to create a story out of it. So I just appreciated that. And like I said, his passion was pretty infectious. So, you know, we probably toured 5 or 6 factories in Nicaragua because we wanted to make Nicaraguan lines. It was a pretty easy decision after we left La Corona.
I really like the fact that you mentioned Omar being sort of a purist and a traditionalist. And we had a very interesting discussion with Ian Reith the other day about that fine balance between keeping the tradition, but also making sure that you sort of innovate and reinvent yourself on a constant basis to, you know, not stand still, but really move forward as a brand and as a company, but also as an industry as a whole. Where do you draw that very fine line for yourself between all these century-old traditions, yet still keeping that innovative, iterative, and almost like disruptive element?
Yeah, I mean, disruption in the cigar industry is funny, man, because like so like, I really believe that none of the way you should make cigars should be touched. Like, you shouldn't, anything that's like something's engineered a certain way or like it's new, like, I just don't think it's going to come out better. I think where you get your innovation from is going to be in your branding, your packaging, and vitolas. Like using a unique vitola, like what we did instead of doing a Toro on the Wayfarer, which is just a 6x50, but we added a 109 cap, which, you know, what's old is new kind of deal, where 109 was something that was being done for decades in Cuba, but in the American market, no one was really using a 109 cap. There was like one or two other brands. And I think you can really work on those kind of embellishments, like, you know, specific vitolas and sizes, or doing something unique. I see Vlad on here, you know, they do a really great job of like releasing the Cottontail, which was a really old mold, but like they brought it new again to the market. So doing things like that, I believe are your way of disruption, but it's a funny industry, because in every other industry you're like, let's innovate, let's get better. But I actually think like sticking to your old traditions is going to produce the best results. But yeah, like I said, I think packaging and your choice of vitolas and how you present those to the market is where you're going to disrupt it.
Speaking of, what would you say were some of the key evolutions in the cigar industry ever since you joined the business?
60s in the American market died off. Small vitolas became more popular again. I believe Humi packs and brick and mortar stores are going to become a big thing, or are a growing thing, which I kind of hate doing. I really don't ever want to do it with their brand, but there have been a lot of people that want us to do it. I just think it makes the packaging look cheap with, you know, just having 5 in a humidified bag. But like I said, I think just presentation is what's changing right now, and packaging. That's kind of the new waves. Like somebody who I think does humidipack really well is one of our partners, Good Cigar Co., which is for like new cigar enthusiasts. They have a zip bag, kind of like coffee, but then they have a cutter, a lighter, and instructions of how to get the new cigar smoker onto cigars, or people who are novices who are maybe a little bit intimidated of walking into a cigar shop. So I think more avenues like that, getting cigar people who want to be cigar people, but since it's kind of such a, I wouldn't say protected, it just, at first it come across intimidating. I liken it a lot to like wine. Like a lot of people want to understand and love wine, but there's so much to it, or so much of like tasting notes and things like this, that it might come across intimidating. So I think getting new cigar smokers comfortable will be a good market. I don't know if I've even stemmed off of the original question, but
it's a great point, Carson. And with the analogy that you draw here with the wine industry, very interesting though. You mentioned the word intimidating, and I fully agree. Yet on the other hand, the wine industry does a great job on giving a lot of educational materials and platforms to people who are really into their wines and who want to dig deeper. Do you think that in the premium cigar industry, we need a little more educational materials, platforms, and opportunities to learn and grow?
yeah, I definitely think there's a gap there between how we present it to new smokers. I think events really help. But even there, you know, there's people intimidated to come ask the cigar manufacturers questions. Some are absolutely not, and they'll ask you a million different questions. But yeah, I think that vehicle to get a new cigar smoker in there and feel comfortable, there's definitely a gap on our side. But like stuff like what you're doing, podcasts, making it more of a community space, I think is definitely a step in the right direction.
I think cigar media is definitely a good point to touch on as well. And the media landscape has changed dramatically over the last couple of years, right? With social media, of course, being one of the biggest changes that we all lived through over the past decade. But how do you see that role of cigar media?
I mean, cigar media, I think does a good job for the most part, most of them. But they do a really good job on getting smaller brands into the limelight or exposure, which, you know, I don't think if what we were trying to do today, if we tried to do it 10 years ago, would have worked, because it was just all really heritage brands. So I think cigar media is good for that, for being direct, right, with, you know, smaller manufacturers, the press releases, the reviews, giving certain cigars some kind of like precedence of quality before they really hit the main market. And then also, you know, it's beneficial for us as like a sales tool. So, you know, I'm always appreciative of cigar media. It's, I think right now, probably we have the most channels for cigar media than ever before. Like I said, like most of them are great. Like they all have a good, concise structure of what they're trying to do and what they're trying to bring to the community. Some so much, not so much, but like it's going to be like that with any industry. So, but yeah, cigar media, I think now is great.
Another question that came in from Andy. Andy, do you want to unmute your mic and raise the question?
Hello, Carson. Another young guy in the cigar industry, or not in the industry, but enjoying cigars. I'm a 26-year-old guy from the UK. I spotted that you're smoking HVC La Rosa at the moment. So what I wanted to know was, other than your own brands, what are you smoking and enjoying at the moment?
Okay, good question, because I smoke a lot of other cigars other than my own. My friend Terry's on here, which it's great to see you, brother. He would attest to this, that I smoke probably way too many other cigars. But so HVC right now, this is a brand I like. This was an exclusive done for a website called cigarclub.com, which they're good friends of mine. And they actually sent this over for me to try it out. A really good blend. It's right in like what I like, medium body blends. Other brands I'm smoking right now, your friend, or our mutual friend Reinhard, Marcel Noble, his Adventura line. I really enjoy that. I smoke a lot of Tatuaje. Adventura, I would say I went on a little Opus run recently, which it's funny because, you know, as heralded as that brand is, it was something I never really tried before, or not tried before, but didn't go through a phase where it was something I was smoking a lot of all the time. So Vlad's brand is great, Castagli. They make great cigars, and that's not only because he's here. I enjoy his brands. So I'm trying to think of, like, if I could give you 5 I'm smoking the most, it's probably a Illusion. Had a lot of Vlad's brand recently. Really enjoy Fuente.
Beyond stuff, Illusion.
Illusion, Aganorsa. I think they do a good job. HRA smoke a lot of. That also comes from La Corona.
And Carson, I guess you still have plenty of stuff to try when you're working on new blends and creating new lines, right? So it's always difficult to find that balance.
Yeah, and I think it's okay to like get inspired from other people's blends. You keep. I'm not one of those people that, you know, have too much of a brain to me that's like, or an ego to me that I'm like, oh, this is my brainchild. No, you're going to pull inspiration from other places and what you want to do and the cigars you want to bring to market. But yeah, HVC, this is another really good brand. Like I said, this was the exclusive for Cigar Club. It's really good. Yeah, so let's just pick with those. Illusion, Tatuaje, Adventura, HVC, and Fuentes. Those are probably the wheelhouse right now.
Perfect, thank you.
And Castagli.
Andy, many thanks for your question. It's always great to see you on the show, and hope you're doing
Thank
well
you, Reinhard.
there in the UK. Carson, let me frame it a bit differently. If you were to describe the aromatic and taste profile of Serino cigars to somebody who has never tried one of them, how would you describe the approach and the style of the cigars, and how has that probably changed from the early beginnings where your father was in charge, and then some of the products that you were more involved with, like Wayfarer?
Okay, so we have a pretty, all of us are on the same page. It's pretty unified on their approach of the way we make cigars. We really look for smoothness and complexity. Even if it's in a really fuller bodied cigars, like that's not something that making, I don't know. Trying to think of a cigar that's just super strong and they're good at what they do. But you know, it has some bite to it. I don't know, like a brand like Craft. You know, they make really full body blends. And that's just something, we make full body blends too, but we really want it to be smooth and complex, rich, but not overpowering. So everything we make will always kind of fall in line with that. People who ask us to make like some mouth blaster San Andreas Maduro, it's probably just not going to happen from us. So we like to stick to what we're good at. Richness, complexity, and nuance in all of our blends. I would say our first lines, the Maduro XX, definitely had a lot of richness and sweetness and full body to us, but it's also smooth. Like I've had some medium light body smokers that still say that's a very approachable cigar form and they love it. And that's really what we want. And then I've had some like, I only smoke Maduros, or I only smoke Oscuros or San Andreas, say, oh, it's not strong enough for us. So that's okay too, because that's not what we're trying to do. I believe everyone's got a gift of how they bring their cigars out. Where it got different was a little bit in Wayfarer and Taino, which are mild to medium. And I specifically worked on those. And they're very mild and medium off the palate. But through the retrohale, there's a lot going on. And I retrohale everything. So like, it's a very me cigar where through the nose, there's a ton of complexity, a lot of richness and fullness, but on the palate, it's actually pretty easy going. So however you smoke, I think somebody can really enjoy that, but it's the same, it's our same values brought into it. Like rich, smooth, complex is everything we aim for.
How did Wayfarer and Taino come along as sort of the inspiration for the brand? I know there's a lot of story behind it, especially with the indigenous story that you have with the Taina. Give us a little bit of the background on those lines.
Okay, so Wayfarer was, it's kind of a fun story. I was going on an international trip with my girlfriend. We were going to Iceland. And it was something we planned for a long time. She wanted to go there. So we went there for 2 weeks. And whenever I go traveling, I bring a big case of cigars with me, mainly because I'm on vacation. This is what I'm going to do. And we got to the airport. It was an international flight. We were like there an hour and 15 minutes before, and left my cigar caddy in the car by accident. So when I got to Iceland, I was kind of trying to seek out any cigar I could find which there's not a big selection in Iceland. That's definitely a pipe country, not really a smoking country. But they had a duty-free and then one tobacconist in Reykjavik, which is their downtown or their capital city. Went there and pretty much all they had was Cuban cigars, or then like your grab bag Monte Cristos, which I can get those in the States. So I just loaded up. I probably got like 40 or 50 cigars for the 2 weeks. And they're all the staples of the Cuban selection. Like there wasn't the exotic stuff there, but it was enough that I could at least enjoy for the week or a couple weeks. And like I said, it was just a phase that I've smoked Cuban cigars before, but it wasn't where you're just, that's all you're smoking for a couple weeks. So I really just enjoyed the profiles on a lot of those cigars. And, you know, it might've been the experiences I was having as well, because that was a really great vacation. But just that really medium bodied, some grassy notes to it, very classic tobacco taste, is what inspired Wayfarer. And we called it Wayfarer because we were literally just circling this country, and, you know, we were taking buses and rental cars and even walk some. And when I got back to the States, I was like, I want to make a cigar like some of the ones I smoked. And I still really love Nicaraguan tobacco. So why don't we try to make a Cuban cigar highlighted by Nicaraguan tobacco, like kind of a hybrid, so to speak. And that's where Wayfarer came from.
Carson, sorry if I interrupt you there. Just a quick question for all the people listening and trying to understand sort of how did you go about that process of trying to replicate a specific aromatic profile that you knew from those Cubans, and then trying to sort of factor that in with
like. Okay, so when I probably bought 5 different brands, and 4 or 5 pack, or 6 different brands, probably like 30 cigars, 4 or 5 pack of each. When I smoked one I really loved, I saved the rest for when I got home. So there were 2 or 3 different blends in there that I really, really loved. One was an Upman 44, a Monte 2, and a Cohiba Robusto. And then I saved those, smoked them again once I got stateside. And then the other 2 I brought for me and Omar to smoke together at La Corona. I said, if we could make like a baby child of these 3 blends, let's try to make it happen. And we just smoked through it, you know, talked about it, and then Wayfarer kind of all began that blending process. Like really woody, almond type aroma to it on the palate, a little bit sweeter, but then they have that really classic tobacco retrohale, some pepper to it, with a kind of like a woody note as well, and a little bit of grassiness in there. And that's what we're going for with Wayfarer.
Cool. Taina, another interesting story, totally different, but with just as much background and just as much depth.
Yeah, so Taino, the Taino people were the indigenous tribe of people that Christopher Columbus first met. So they were, you know, he came into Hispaniola, which is present day Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Cuba, and, you know, the Greater and Lesser Antilles. And he came to Columbus, and tobacco was already a thing in Europe back in the 1700s, or whenever, 1400s, I believe. Yeah, 1500s. And he came and saw these tribe of people smoking tobacco in this kind of format. You know, it's obviously way more rustic and indigenous than it is now. But the Taino people were the first ones ever to bring tobacco to a cigar-like format, or documented in history at least. So I just thought, you know, have so much of history and culture is such a big part of the, you know, cigar marketing and the way people enjoy cigars, that I thought it would be really awesome to pay homage to, you know, the actual tribe of people of where cigars came from. A lot of people don't also understand that their history, like Cohiba, is a Taino word for like rolled tobacco leaves. And, you know, that was started by the Taino people. So I thought Taino would be a really great brand, and we were going to try to make the boxes look a little bit more rustic, make the band. I did research on, like, you know, their birds and their other items that you see on their band, and just modernized it, made it a little more palatable for you know, the American market today. But I made sure that, you know, we use wooden molds, so it's kind of has a slightly bumpy, rustic look to the roll. It's rolled very well. So, you know, Omar is very good at it. The factory is, but and then we left all the ends uncut, had uncut ends or closed foots, so that, you know, it had that rustic indigenous look to it. But everything with that project was pretty much try to just pay homage to you know, the genesis story of cigars.
I once read a quote of yours where you said that you should always blend with purpose, and that every cigar has a story to tell. And with everything that you just described regarding Taino and the story behind that, do you always start by conceptualizing the cigar and building the story around it first, and then go into the blending side of things? Or could it also be the other way around for you?
I mean, they work hand in hand. Like, you kind of have an idea. I usually have an idea of like what cigar we want to bring next through Serino to the market. And then we kind of fit branding, you know, to the blend. But Wayfarer just kind of happened. It was very fluid. You know, that was like totally inspiration. Like, I was smoking a bunch of cigars I really loved. That branding was already in the back of my mind. And then the blending happened. With Taino, that, like, I knew what we wanted out of the cigar. I knew we wanted Taino as the brand, but you know, we didn't work on the blend first. We kind of just had the brand out in front of it. And I knew, me and Omar talked about what we wanted this blend to look like. We wanted another really Cuban, almost, it's funny we made it in Nicaragua because, you know, Taino people were mainly of Cuba and Dominican Republic, but we wanted it to smoke like a Cuban and Dominican cigar, but we were making it out of Nicaragua. So that was hard. But yeah, so it's kind of all over the place, but usually we have the branding out first, and then we get the cigar to meet the branding.
Ian, always a pleasure to see you on the show. You had a question a bit earlier.
Hi, thank you. I'm from England, Carson, but I've been to Nicaragua a few times, and I love their cigars. I've not tried Serino. I also like Cuban cigars, and obviously we get a lot of those in the UK, and I know people like Pete Johnson very much have a Cuban style for a lot of their cigars. Which of yours should one sort of start with if you want to sort of get into the Serino brand? And do you do sample packs of different cigars that one can try a few without having to get a box of 20?
So we have Cuba de Oro in Switzerland, which I believe would ship to you. And then we have 2 other distributors now, or retailers out in Europe. But for where to start, I would say, if you really like that classic taste, that what you were describing, but still like highlighted with Nicaraguan tobacco, I would say Wayfarer and Taino for our medium bodied. And then if you want something really rich, our Maduro XX blend. It's very sweet. It's a very Jalapa driven blend, which is Jalapa Criollo 98, which is a very sweet chocolatey type of leaf. Those would be like my 3 right there as like the intro pack. I really love our Connecticut, but that's also like a starter cigar. I think it's, you know, a fuller Connecticut, but still very delicate and nuanced. But I would say those 3: the Wayfarer, Taino, and Maduro XX.
Thank you. I mean, I'm happy smoking Connecticut's. I like, depends on what time of day and what my mood is. And, I like a complex cigar. So I like things that Steve Saka does. I like the Padron Damaso, for example, which is a lovely Connecticut
I agree.
cigar. And I'm smoking an Oliva now, and I've never had a bad Oliva. I just love them.
Yeah, they're really good at what they do. And I would say then try our Connecticut, specifically in either the Torpedo or the Churchill, because there's always cigars in every line that definitely sing in a certain size. But those are my two recommendations for the Connecticut line. But yeah, from what you're describing, if you like complexity, I think Wayfarer and Taino would probably be right up here, right in your wheelhouse.
Thank you.
So, if you message me on Facebook, I'll try to figure out a route to get you some of them. So
thank you.
Yeah, very well.
Carson, just because we got the question multiple times, can you tell us a little bit about the availability of Serino cigars and where you are distributed or available at?
Okay, so in the States, it's pretty, easy to find a retailer, either online or, around wherever you're at. You'd have to contact me, and I could point you in the right direction. In Europe, we just now started to kind of grow over there. We were planning on going to Intertabac this year, which I don't know if still is going to happen. I believe it got canceled due to the pandemic. But right now we have somebody in Latvia, Romania, and Switzerland. So those are the three places. I'm working on the UK, but that's not finalized.
How do you go about finding those partners of yours, and how do you establish those connections with people who ultimately take care of your brand then?
I think the best way would be go to Intertabac, which for people who don't know, it's like your big trade show for the European market. That would be our best route, which is what we were planning on doing this year. But other than that, you're relying on pretty much either social media or referrals, which, one of them I got off of a referral, the guy in Switzerland, the other two found me through social media. So unless you're going over there and trying to expand your market like we do in the States, it's going to be kind of cumbersome to get distribution. But it's something we're working on and we're growing. And, if anyone messages me, I know we have people over there that I can probably get them our line through. So we're keeping at it. So we are trying to be more involved in the European market.
Did you ever realize, comparing the American market and the European market, that there is stark contrasts in the way people perceive and appreciate cigars? Did you find some particular differences in the palate?
Okay, so I don't know if this is just from the people who buy our cigars, but it seems like, and it's totally different than what I would have thought. It seems like in the European market right now, are big gauges kind of hot? Like bigger cigars? Because I would think because they had all of the Cuban background and the availability of Cubans, which are mainly made in, a very traditional, like a Toro, Robusto, little Coronas, that would be solely what that market wanted. But I have most of my orders coming in for 54 to 60 gauges, which was really surprising to me. And I don't know if that's just our customers, like our retailers market, or if that's a pretty unified thing in the European market right now. But from what I've seen, that's been something interesting. I think that people in the European market, from what I've seen, like really good medium to full bodied cigars, or a medium, more on the medium spectrum, where I think like what I was saying earlier about the American market, people either want something really strong or, very mild. So there's definitely a niche market for that very medium classic style in our market right now.
I mean, it's always interesting to sort of get some different perspectives on how people see those individual markets. And I mean, we have Aldo on the show, our brother from Italy, Smoking Moses. Aldo, maybe you wanna add your 3 cents to that, and how you see that. I mean, you in particular coming from Italy, where people are being socialized with cigars with Toscani. How's that probably different from some of the other countries over here in Europe?
Well, first of all, I have to ask a question to Carson.
Oh, please do.
Carson, hi. Do you remember where you were the second day of January 2018?
I was in Venice, Italy, and I went to your shop.
Exactly.
Yep.
I was not there, unfortunately. You find my wife, and you gave me some cigars to try, and for me it was an amazing experience. So I have to thank you here in front of all the people, because really, for me it was fantastic, and I'm really afraid that they are not available here in Italy because I love them. And this year I planned to come to United States to EPCPR, but unfortunately, you know that what happened, and so in that trip I planned to buy a lot of your cigars because really I felt in love with them. So, and by the way, so thank you for this opportunity that you gave me. And well, Italy is a difficult market, I understand, for several reasons. First of all, because most of the smokers here smoke Toscano cigars, and the taste and the aroma, the strength of that cigar is particular and unique, and it is quite difficult to make people change from that cigar to the, let's say, handmade Caribbean style cigar, no matter if it is Cuban or Nicaraguan or Dominican. And so, and another thing is that the Toscano cigars
I noticed that, especially in Italy, and it,
yeah, and Toscano cigars are really very cheap because they are machine made. So it's difficult even for me that I have a shop to make people change, you know.
yeah, and then I imagine when people get to your shop that really enjoy cigars because you have a Cuban selection there, they don't want to hear about like a Nicaraguan or Dominican cigar. You're selling pretty much to, you know, probably Americans or other travelers who wanna, you know, want Cuban blends.
Honestly, I'm not a big fan of Cuban cigars. Not because of the, well, I think it's something that is only in my heart. They are not giving me the same emotion, the same feeling that I have when I smoke a Nicaraguan cigar. So I think that Cuban cigars are, at least in my shop, are there for the tourists, for people that comes from United States, from Asia, from, well, let's say abroad. I try to make people that live here in Venice, so customers that come again in the shop, I make them try Nicaraguan cigars and Dominican cigars and Honduras, and after a little bit they felt in love with them. So I think it's only a problem of learning and developing the taste and the palate. Then everyone is different. So how can I say? I don't want to say that Cuban cigars are better or less. I don't know. It's only a personal feeling, a personal taste. And so this is the Italian market. And here in Italy, well, it's difficult selling cigar because I don't want to bore you with our laws, but it's a difficult market. So.
Yeah, I know you guys probably have a substantial tax as well, I believe, which I don't do. Our, what am I looking for? Our Toscanos and, you know, premium hand rolled cigars are they taxed the same way?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Okay.
Tobacco is taxed everywhere. Every kind of tobacco has the same taxation.
Okay. Yeah, and I imagine, I don't know if it's because of the price point or if people have just been on Toscanos for so long that, you know, you're trying to wean them onto something different and people are just comfortable. But yeah, I could definitely see the, you know, the obstacles in that, especially competing on the price. And once you import all that stuff over from, you know, Cuba, Nicaragua, Dominican Republic, I imagine they're substantially higher in price point. But Toscano is manufactured in Italy? I don't know if they.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
I was asking my friend a question if where Toscanos were manufactured at.
Well, there are some places, it's not only one single place, but mainly closer to, let's say, Lucca area in the center part of Italy, let's say.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know if they were manufacturing them in the Caribbean or if they were actually manufactured over in Europe. So, you know, that too makes it way more easier to bring them to your market since they're in Italy. But yeah, this is what I'm like, what you were talking about earlier about the gap in information. Like, I also think Europe has a bigger gap in information based on like just Cuban cigars and what they know about it compared to like brands from the stateside. So, you know, there's got to be a way to educate them on what the different brands are and why, you know, why they're better than what, or different, but in an advantageous way, like that they can offer a good experience to your customers who are so used to seeing the same brands. And
I think it's also a problem. It's a matter of tradition. Here, Cuban cigars are available in Italy since I don't know how many years. So people are used to that taste, are used to that feeling, and so they are maybe afraid to try something different, because when you try something different, you have always, how can I say, it's something that has to change in your mind, to open your mind to something new, and it is not so easy sometimes.
I can see that.
I would also mention that the European market was probably for a long time, right? It was dominated, still is, dominated by Cubans. And then obviously your other option would probably be Davidoff. Now, Davidoff for the past 10, 15 years, give or take, has always been on that light to medium side. And over the past decade or so, they've been slowly ramping up to keep up with, you know, demand, trends, things like that. But something like a pure Nicaraguan, I mean, I remember smoking my first LFD probably 10 years ago. And, you know, I thought I smoked really, really full cigars with like the Ayones of the world and the Bolivar Belicoso Fino and stuff like that. And the first digger I smoked, I almost threw up. I was, you know, green in my face. We're just not used to the super heavy, rich Nicaraguan stuff. And the Serino cigars really do provide a very different taste experience. And especially in Europe, I think that'll catch on. And then the A size, which I know you guys will probably never get it in Europe, because you made what, like 1,000 of them?
Yeah, 1,000 of them.
That's really good. Carson gave me one last year, and I smoked it a couple, 6 months ago, give or take. And it really tasted like a good, like it could stand shoulder to shoulder to a 1926 Padron series. I don't know if I ever told you that, but it's really, really good. I sat there and, you know, kind of meditated on it for about 2.5, 3 hours. Really, really delicious. You know, if you ever see that in the wild, or if you're, you know, back traveling where someone can pick it up in the US, and if you do see it, please buy it. If you don't like it, I'll Venmo you the money.
I appreciate it, Vladdy.
And Vlad, thank you for tuning in, and also thank you for connecting us here and setting us up for another very inspiring session. So kudos to you, and many thanks for your support. It means a lot.
Thanks for having me, I guess.
Carson, when everything that Vlad just described, you know, having that very Nicaraguan complex aromatic profile, yet still keeping a sort of medium-bodied, very balanced smoke experience. Is it the aging that you really try to create those unique properties through?
It's three-part. It's the way it's blended, it's the post-roll aging, and it's the fermentation process. So those three together are going to give you, you know, sometimes things are strategically, you know, it's not a bash or a knock on a brand. Sometimes things are strategically under fermented for bite. Like, and that's might be something what like Ian was talking about, like a disruption model. But you know, like I said, we have a very purist way of making our things. So yeah, post roll we roll everything like the Taino and Wayfarers are 6 months aged after, which is, you know, above the status quo. I think other people only have like 3 months. Not everybody, but a majority of the market. And then on the Serinos, the Royale line, that's in a year plus. So, you know, once they're at a year, we pull them from the factory. But if they can sit there a little bit longer, if we don't need the product yet, then they'll sit there. So slow fermentation, you know, the blend specifically, and aging.
Since you mentioned different aspects of aging, what is your philosophy on just using very old and particular tobaccos that were matured before rolling, and then the aging of the cigars after they've been rolled? What are the differences, and what would all these elements bring to the final smoking experience?
Well, on the back end of it, you have your fermentation time, or the way it's fermented, and the temperature. So you don't want it to be too hot. You want it to be at a, you know, a below a certain temp. And then you have the bale age, how long the bale's aged afterwards. And then post rolling, that's, you know, you have a sick period. I'm sure people have been on here and discussed this before, that, you know, anything, you know, you can smoke it right off table, but then there's like a 30 to 90 day gap, you know, depending on the blend, it's gonna bring out some imperfections or just not be optimal form. But and then after 3 months, I believe that, you know, cigars really start to gain their profile. And you really kind of know what you're getting, and that's when we feel confident bringing it to market. But if we can age it past then, we absolutely will. That's all comes into like where demand's at. But yeah, there's things, like I said, on the back end of manufacturing, and then on our side of distribution that you can do. But I think you just need to look at those things meticulously and do them well.
Perfect. I also wanted to take a brief moment and bring in Erica from TLE podcast. The ladies over there are always doing an amazing job with new episodes. And oh, Erica, you're driving.
I stopped for a moment for this.
Oh, bloody hell.
I appreciate it. Good to see you again, Erica.
Good to see you, Carson. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm currently in Georgia, not driving, but
that's good.
Hanging out with these guys. So everything's good. Everything's good on my end. We have some fun new projects coming up, and you know how it goes. Just trying to expand the brand and get more people to understand what we're doing.
I totally agree, and I'm so proud of you, man. And those who know, I knew of Carson's company through social media. A lot of the people that I followed and trusted, they talked about Serino all the time. And I was like, I have to get my hands on this. And I finally found it, and I smoked the Maduro, and I was like, okay, this is something. I have to explore this brand more. And you and I had created friendship, and you know, ever since then, I know you're so busy and you're hitting the road and you're traveling so much, but I just wanted to say that I'm so proud of you, and just to see how far you have come with the company, and you're doing amazing things, man.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I know you were one of the first people to smoke our cigars. Right when we were right after the pre-release, you were one of the first people to get on and locate down one of our cigars. So, and since then we've become friends. But yeah, you in the beginning, I'm very appreciative for, and like helping out getting the word, and I'm happy to see you're doing well.
Yeah, thank you. So I do have a question for you. So what's your favorite part of the factory process? So you're down at the factory. Is it, you know, the blending? Is it the final product? Is it boxing the cigars? Like what's your favorite part of it?
Probably working with Omar when blending's going on. That and picking through the aging room and finding things I've never seen before. That's always pretty enchanting, being like, hey, what's that on the wall and why is that being made? And one of the cigars we're bringing to market is pretty much that's how it came. I went into the factory and we pulled one of those blends out, and it was just incredible. And it was just something Omar actually made, and he was just like, just went forgotten over like months and months. And I was like, we need to bring these to like people. Like, why is this hiding away? What happened to this guy? So I would say the blending and also the aging room are my two favorite parts.
Is it the first initial like smoke of finding the new, like the hidden gems? Or is it just like, oh my goodness, this is here. I can't believe this is here. Is that, or is it kind of like both?
Both. Like seeing them out there, and it's usually if I see something like in a wrapper and a size, and I'll see that and be like, hey, can I just smoke this? And then it'll be like, whoa, where has this been? Why are you holding out on us? What's going on here? Yeah, both of it.
Now, what is one more? Sorry, Reinhard. I'm taking over.
Fire away.
So what is, I guess, what's the most, like the most frustrating part of the blending process? Is it more of like, okay, you have this idea of a flavor profile and you're really trying to get to it, or is it something else? Because I know it's like, it's a process. It's like, I know you all as blending, you're trying to do so much and you have this vision, but what's the hardest part? Because I don't think I've ever heard anybody really break it down the way that I know that you can.
Yeah, so the favorite part, like, is with Omar smoking the puritos of like the single tobaccos of what it's going to be within that blend, and like learning more about like that one like variety of leaf, and you know where it came from, like Seco, Viso, Ligero. But then like I'd say it's frustrating when you think like you really love all of these and then you put them into a blend and it just doesn't work out at all. Like it's just deflating, you know? So I would say like, you know, when expectation meets reality on something you think is going to be very good and it's not.
I got it. Makes sense. That's cool. I get it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Which happens, but I don't know. It's all fun. You know, you find joy in it. So like that whole process, like, you know, the branding and coming out with the product is like my favorite part of the whole industry.
And it shows, man. It really shows in your cigars. So again, keep doing it, and I can't wait to see what's happening and the new stuff that's coming up.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I appreciate it, and if I have any extra, since you're stateside, that I can spare, I'll send some your way as well, so you can test them out.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Really do.
Eric, and we appreciate you being on the show. Thank you so much. You see, that's some serious dedication and commitment. We're even pulling people over whilst they're driving. So thank you for tuning in, and keep continuing the great work that you do with the TLE podcast. Big kudos and big thumbs up to the lounge experience, ladies. You're doing a great job. Carson, since you were already taking sort of a little glimpse into the crystal ball, give us like a bold prediction. Where would you like the brand to be in the next 5 to 10 years? What's in store for you?
I would like, so what I would, you know, obviously you want more distribution, but with that, more distribution of people that are buying into what we're doing. Not just to have them on the shelf, but more so, you know, have people that believe in your product and want to support you. And that's like end goal, what you want to do. And also have the community of cigar enthusiasts believe that you're not just some guy who's just trying to throw cigars on the market, that you actually take the time and you really care about what you're bringing to market. You know, I think through, you know, you can always find improvement through your own practices. So that's what we're always trying to do. But in terms of like newer stuff, my dad's gonna hate me for this, but like more unique vitolas that he would say don't sell. But that's something I would like to bring more to our portfolio. Really like look at different molds and unique cigars and bring them and showcase cigars as not just a mass-made item, but as an artisan handmade item. And I think that's what I would like, you know, creatively to do over the next 5 years. And then business-wise, just find more people that buy into what we're doing.
That's amazing. Great to hear. And I'm pretty sure you're definitely on a road of success and a rising star within the ecosystem. We wish you all the best for that. Speaking of looking ahead and looking into the future, just to let you guys know, we still got 2 great more sessions this week. So we've got Dr. Gaby Coffey tuning in. It's going to be amazing. And then we also have Alan and Bradley Rubin gonna tune in on Sunday. So 2 more fantastic sessions, and hopefully you're gonna join us on Friday and Sunday. Carson, before we wrap things off, sort of going back full circle to where we actually started, and with your initial kickstart in the industry, if you were to give yourself an advice and give the younger Carson at probably age 18 before you entered the cigar industry an advice, what would that be?
Pretty much just trust your gut on things. Like there is some stuff in the initial run of what we did. We made very standard sizes, and I would have started going immediately to the sizes I liked, which we started to do more. Like if you look at Wayfarer and Taino compared to our earlier runs, they're sizes that me and my dad always smoked. The first Serino lines, like there were vitolas in there that we really enjoyed, but we also made cigars that we believe the mass market wanted. So I would just say bring the way the style of like artisanship of what you want to, like, you know, all encompass it to how you do things. So that would probably be my advice to myself. But even now, like where you know, we replaced some of the couple of the sizes of the Royale line with sizes we really loved. So things can be corrected. I try not to, you know, beat me and my dad up too much about it, you know, because that was our first venture into the ultra premium cigar market. So not the first, but our first time putting our name on the brand and bringing it to the market, you know, and really, you know, holding all the accountability for it as well. So, yeah, that would, if you want to make a connoisseur brand, then just make, you know, sizes that you as a connoisseur want to smoke. So, and that comes with, like I said, trusting your gut, also like on packaging things, which we've done a really good job of recently, and, you know, going to the future of what we're about to do. So we have a couple new blends coming out, and new website, a lot of new things on our end happening. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Carson, thank you so much for the time that you shared with us, for all your considerations and the passion and commitment that you bring to the table. We wish you nothing but the very best for the path forward, and I can't wait to catch up with you again, share a great cigar. And until then, be safe and best of luck, best of success with Serino Cigar Company. And many thanks for you being on the Light 'em Up show. All the very best.
Likewise, guys. And I really appreciate everyone who tuned in. And Smoking Moses, good to finally meet you. And your wife treated me with such love when I saw her. So tell her thanks. And yeah, I appreciate you guys tuning in to learn more about us. And next time, maybe when we release a cigar, I can come back on here and fill you guys in. But definitely good to connect. And if any of you guys have any questions, I try to be pretty transparent. And you can find me on Facebook or through Instagram if anybody's on that. So look forward to talking to all you guys again.
All the very best and take care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
See you guys.